So I hope this is a bit light touch before lunch, because I don't know about you, I'm starting to be really, really hungry. So hopefully I last until the end. I'm very grateful to be allowed to share some reflection with colleagues today. So I shall disclose I don't have any finding yet. This is more a presentation of a concept that I discovered, I would say recently, a year and a half ago, that I think can really help us as academics. So I thought, why not? Why not sharing if we can make our life better? And the concept that I want to speak about is self-compassion, compassion towards yourself. Bear with me, because before I go on, I will have to make a very small disclaimer in order to avoid going to jail. I don't think I'll manage to survive in jail, so I have to make the disclaimer to be safe. After that, I'll lead you to understanding what is self-compassion, if you are not familiar with the concept already. And then I'll tell you where did I discover self-compassion, a very far away field from education, neuropsychology. And then at the very end, I hope to give you practical tips about putting self-compassion at work in your daily lives. So hopefully an exciting journey. But let me make the disclaimer, which I said is very important. I want to say I'm not trying to teach a therapy. We all know we have an ethical code of conduct. I wouldn't be doing my job if I were saying I'm going to cure you with my magical powers of self-compassion. That's not what we are doing today. But to be kind to yourself, you don't need a therapist, not necessarily. So the message is really, we are not trying to cure conditions, we are trying to improve our life. The second disclaimer I must make after several discussions with several colleagues is that what I'm trying to reflect on is not blaming the individual while forgetting societal issues. That's not the point. So please don't think that the idea is, oh, if everyone is self-compassionate, we solve all the problems. We won't. If I were able to do that, I would probably be a millionaire on an island somewhere warm, because I forgot to say I'm based in Scotland. So that would be the plan. So societal challenges will remain, but being self-compassionate is within our control. And the final bit, I want to apologize. I'm a very positive person. I think sometimes I tend towards toxic positivity, despite not being very lucky in life. So the entire presentation has this positive flavor. So having done my disclaimer, I see people are still here. We can really go into the main. I want to start by asking you a question. Do you think higher education is a compassionate environment? I cannot see the chat, but I can see the face of people. So you can nod if you think it is a compassionate environment, or you can do this movement if you think no. Or yes, people, great, you are colleagues, so of course you do so and so. That's amazing. Yesterday I ran a similar session for PhD students and they made a useful distinction. They said, my supervisor is very compassionate. I love the relationship. I can speak of many things. However, the system is not compassionate. So they distinguish these two levels. Well, that's the distinction that we need to make. Overall, if you take the system and you take the average, I'm not saying anything new here, higher education doesn't really look like a fully compassionate environment, because I don't have to tell you, like if I say NSS, I imagine people starting to scratch, or if you are in a better position, you go, hey, but I don't think don't have to mention all these rankings. We know it's a competitive market with competition for jobs, competition for promotions. I did not have enough space to list all the inequalities. And I'm very fortunate that colleagues today, like before this moment, they explained all these inequalities much better than I can do in less than a minute. So overall, higher education, at this systemic level is not necessarily compassionate. That leads the question, can we do better? And this is where we can insert the idea of self-compassion. We can do better as we await societal changes, we can indeed do better at the individual level. Now, none of this is my work, so I'm very, very grateful to Kerstin Neff, who is a colleague based in the US, who did all the studies on self-compassion. So what I'm showing here, it's absolutely not something I developed, is the shared, definition of self-compassion and the three key components that several studies have highlighted. I don't think I have to provide a definition of compassion because intuitively everyone knows what it is. But for self-compassion, I want to stress the last part of the definition. Self-compassion is sensitivity to one's own suffering and I will stress with my Italian accent, I can do it very well, and a desire to alleviate that suffering. So self-compassion is really that. I want the suffering to end. It's a powerful concept. It's not the same as empathy. I know what you're feeling. I'm sort of feeling the same. With self-compassion, you want to end the suffering. You want a change. And this is what really captured my attention, because to me, it applies perfectly to the situation in academia, especially when things are not going well, right? The key components of this concept are self-kindness rather than self-criticism. I think Jamie was saying, I'm a perfectionist when I write, like that kind of criticism, like this is not perfect. My presentation here is not perfect, but instead of saying it sucks and going crying in a corner, I can be kind to myself and say, okay, this is the best I could do in the time that I had. Mindfulness, and when I say mindfulness, I'm not saying put your leggings on and go touching raisins. Mindfulness means stay in the moment. One other thing that sometimes we do as human beings is overthinking. So this core idea in self-compassion is that we stay in the present moment. We don't go too far in the future or far back in the past. And the third point is really great, and I think it resonates a lot with the fun. Common humanity. The idea that instead of being isolated, we, network with each other, we share our suffering and we share ideas to alleviate that suffering, which is exactly what we are trying to do here. Very briefly, I came across this concept in neuropsychology, and I think it's an excellent bit of concept to be aware of. Neuropsychology, I don't have to explain to you what it is. You know that neuropsychology deals with brain injuries. I worked for 10 years in the hospital in cognitive rehabilitation, trying to help people with brain injuries, and often it was disappointing. Because if you try and completely restore the cognitive functions of a person with a brain injury, it leads to a lot of stress in the person herself. It becomes really hard, right, to go back to the pre-injury levels. That stress then impacts the ability of the person to go forward. And what I learned is that very recently, so I'm really speaking like 5 years ago, also neuropsychology is moving towards a self-compassion approach. So together with delivering attentional trainings, people also deliver self-compassion trainings that help individuals cope with the idea that they are different from before. This is great and it can be applied to so many domains. So I don't have time to go in the details of this model, but this is the model of self-compassion. It's a model based on evolutionary data, psychophysiological findings. So there are studies showing that we work this way. And the simple message that it's giving you is that in life, we work with three basic systems. The drive system, my motivation, the threat system, what I'm scared of, and the soothing system, which is sort of the calming down system. Now, why bringing this to academia? Because academia is the perfect, depiction of things going wrong when only the drive system or the threat system are in action. The drive system for us in academia could be the competition with peers, with oneself, to go up the academic ladder. The threat system, unfortunately, I don't have to explain. I just have to say a word, redundancies, and that's enough to activate the system. Right. And I can prove that we work this way, because if I ask you to tell me one thing that was negative last week, or to tell me if you had one problem that you overthought last week, I'm pretty sure that people immediately respond. Am I right? Like, did something bad happen last week? And people usually go, yes, yes. However, the problem with academia is that, we don't do this. We don't do self-kindness. Self-kindness, if I ask you, what did you do that was kind to yourself last week? You will have to think a bit more, which to me is very sad, because, we can't only survive on drive and threat. Self-kindness does not mean that every week you go and buy yourself, I don't know, I like bags, so I don't go every week to buy a Louis Vuitton bag, because clearly that's beyond my means and unachievable. Self-kindness is really the small things that we do to end our suffering. Academia is chaotic, it's fast-paced, there's always something to do. Today we have this conference, people popping in, popping out, trying to do 100 things at the same time. I bet at least 50 or 60% of the people in the call, you have your emails open and you are trying to multitask. Don't lie, because I can see it, I know it. So, and I'm doing exactly the same. So what I've been really trying to do since a year, basically, having understood that it's unlikely that I will change alone, the academic system, I've been trying to adopt this type of approach, which again, I did not develop, but I'm very comfortable in taking and approaching and applying to my life. And what I really wanted to leave people with today is this checklist, which again is based on the work done in the self-compassion realm. It's a very simple approach to, those negative events that we were describing, and I'm also happy to post it in the Padlet if people want to have it without having to take a note. Because one thing that we should keep in mind is that it's not easy. It's not easy to shift approach. We grow up in academia. We are trained to be hyperproductive, right? We are rewarded for being perfectionist, for stretching ourselves. So self-compassion is a different way of approaching this type of environment. It's never automatic. It becomes easier the more you do it. But the reward is that you rebalance those three systems that I've shown you. And what I really believe, but it's not on the slides, so no one can come to me in 10 years and say it's your fault. What I really believe is that we are academia. So if we slowly change our attitudes, I believe that will be also, changing the entire system. So that's it. That's me rushing through this. I want to say thank you very much for allowing me this space because I realize exactly I don't have findings, so I'm just sharing a thought. So I want to thank the TIFAN network and the organizers of the conference, you for listening, but I also want to highlight that the theory is true. I could only do these reflections because of the team in my department, because of the people who reflected with me along the way. So what I'm really hoping to find other people who are like-minded and share the reflection. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. And what a wonderful session to finish the afternoon just before we go and hopefully get some lunch and maybe step away from our computers when we are eating our lunch. That will be my act of kindness to myself. A huge thank you to Jamie and Helen. It's been wonderful to hear about the work that you're doing with the Inclusion Cafe, and I am definitely going to be sending emailing you just to find out more and maybe just to share what we're doing. And yes, that's wonderful work. Sophie, this resonates with me personally and some of the challenges that I face as as an academic, but also needing that help or feeling like I do. So this really resonated with me. Chat GTP is my little helper. What a wonderful title. And I hope that that would be the title of any publications or comms that you do on this. And Anna, your coverage of self-compassion, and I think we need more of that to ourselves and to support our students in how to become compassionate in a really tough world at the moment, very, very tough world, and have some of that hope and optimism. So Anna, we will have some time for some questions, but I do understand if people need to dash off, because we said we would finish at 15:15, please do so. But if you would like to ask Anna any questions, I will be staying. So any questions for Anna? Yes. Liam, we have a question from Liam.
It was more just a thank you because I think this is a really important thing. I've certainly reflected on it a lot and I engaged with some of the literature like Christian Ness stuff you're talking about. And I also one thing I imagine you might have got to if I hadn't clogged up the session with any questions for Sophie was this idea of fierce self-compassion. Like you say, compassion isn't always buying the handbag, or in my case, probably buying the donut, or whatever it is. It's the kind of like, how do I make the choice sometimes that actually is difficult because it's going to disappoint some other people, which I think is often the kind of the challenge I find in education, but is necessary for me to keep going and keep showing up the next day, the next day, the next day. And I say that as someone who lives with a physical disability, and I can give everything 150% on day one. But if I do that, I won't be here on day 2, day 3, day 4. So yeah, I think this is really important. I would encourage you to share this message as widely as possible. It's not out of character or out of keeping, I think, with everything that we do need to be doing within higher education. And yeah, no,
Thank you, Liam, and 100% agree. We are in for the long run, so we must look after ourselves. Thanks.
Thank you. And on that note, I'm just putting a little share for we have a compassionate pedagogy learning circle, which is open, and some podcasts that have been done by one of our colleagues, Luke Hodgson. So I'll just pop that in and there's some podcasts that people could use.